Welcome, dear chosen ones, beloved elect, who have answered this call. Pay close attention to whom you dismiss. Some people are designed to ascend in a way that defies all explanation. Let that idea sink in, because right now, as you are watching this video, someone who swore they had forgotten you is secretly checking your page. Someone who laughed when you were down is now wiping sweat from their brow whenever they hear your name. They said you were nothing special, but they can't help but replay the time spent with you as if it were an unfinished Netflix series. Here is a fact most people overlook. According to psychological studies, people become obsessed with those who forced them to confront their deepest insecurities, not with those who offered them comfort. And you, chosen one, that is exactly what you did. You never tried to be unforgettable. You simply were. You didn't need drama or attention to make noise. Your very existence disrupted their entire spiritual ecosystem. Let's be honest, you entered rooms and, without even trying, threatened the very foundations of people's false confidence. No scene, no spotlight, just you, your presence, and your divine mission arriving as if to say, "Hello, I'm here to unknowingly trigger your ego and expose your unhealed wounds." This video will show you exactly why you occupy so much mental space right now, why your detractors sweat in silence, and why, despite all the betrayals, misunderstandings, and exile, you remain a spiritual phenomenon that can neither be replaced, erased, nor ignored. Get ready, because after this you will stop wondering why me and instead declare, there has truly never been anyone like me. Period. Let's go deep. Number 1, you trigger a guilt that cannot be buried with lies. You provoke a type of guilt that most people cannot suppress, even if they claim to have moved on. It's the kind of guilt that won't let them rest in the middle of the night. The kind that creeps in while they're mindlessly scrolling, or even when they are lying next to someone else. You didn't need to fight back. You didn't even need to defend yourself. From the moment they mistreated you, their own minds began to judge them on your behalf. That is what makes you unforgettable. You didn't have to expose anyone. They exposed themselves through the way they treated you. People rarely forget those who loved them sincerely, who supported them without hidden agendas, and who were still wounded for it. That kind of innocence hits differently. It haunts them in a way they cannot explain, because it forces them to confront the ugliest parts of themselves. They didn't just betray a person. They betrayed someone they knew deep down was rare, perhaps even divine. So now, they lie awake trying to rewrite history, hoping that by labeling you as crazy, toxic, or too much, they can feel better about what they did. But even when they say these things out loud, their conscience knows the truth. And that truth is deafening when the world becomes silent. They remember your calm when they were chaotic. They remember your patience when they were disrespectful. They remember the grace you extended when they gave you attitude. And now that they've had time to reflect or face the void of having lost you, they can't help but spiral. This guilt does not fade because it wasn't based on a misunderstanding. It was based on clarity. They knew what they were doing when they hurt you. They knew you didn't deserve it, and now they are stuck with the truth of who they became in your presence. What's worse is that this guilt mixed with your evolution is torture. You healed, you leveled up, you radiated without becoming bitter. And every time they catch a glimpse of your joy, your peace, your victories, it reminds them that they could have been alongside you if they hadn't ruined something heaven sent. This isn't just regret. It's spiritual torment, and all of it they are inflicting upon themselves. Number 2, you carry a frequency that can neither be imitated nor reproduced. You carry something that most people cannot explain, and that is exactly why they cannot forget you. It's not your looks, it's not your style, it's not even your words, it's your frequency. The energy you emit when you enter a room, the peace that follows you, the way your presence either calms people or completely disrupts their minds. That cannot be simulated, and it certainly cannot be copied. You were born with it. It's spiritual, it's divine, and it exposes all the false versions of strength people try to project. Most people are playing a role. They wear confidence like a costume. They mimic success, pretend to have peace, act indifferent. But when someone like you shows up, authentic, whole, not trying to prove anything, you don't just stand out. You shatter their entire illusion. You force people to feel what they've been avoiding, and it frustrates them. Because they can't name what makes you different. They just know they feel smaller, messier, or more confused in your presence, even if you're doing nothing but being yourself. That is why people become obsessed. That is why they study you in silence. That is why they try to tear you down. Because deep down they know you didn't climb the corporate ladder to get this power. You were born with it. They try to label it as arrogance, weirdness, or even luck. But it still doesn't explain why you don't seek validation, why you effortlessly attract people, and why doors seem to open without you having to beg. This energy is not common, and it makes ordinary people uncomfortable. What they don't realize is that the frequency you carry did not come without a price. You earned it through pain, betrayal, moments where you had to heal in silence. It's not just a vibe, it's your testimony. And now, that energy protects you, elevates you, and reveals everyone who is not aligned. That is why people fall away when you grow. That is why fake friends become enemies. They couldn't stay because the truth in you exposes the lie in them. And now that you have fully stepped into your light, they are obsessed, confused, and uncomfortable all at once. Not because you changed, but because your frequency refuses to be diminished for anyone. Number 3, you are the silent proof that they settled for less. You became the living reminder that they accepted mediocrity. And that is a pain they cannot escape. They didn't just let a person go. They let go of a path, a future, and a version of themselves that could have been better had they chosen to grow with you. They didn't choose you because you were too deep, too real, too raw. They chose comfort, they chose ego, they chose the easy way out. But now, they are sitting in the consequences of that choice, and the comparison eats them up from the inside. Every time they see your radiance, your peace, your purpose, it reminds them that they did not grow with you. They remained stuck, and now they are trapped with people who only reflect their dysfunction, not their growth. They watch you evolve from a distance, and that is the real pain. Because you weren't just a missed opportunity, you were the exit from their chaos. You were the upgrade they were not ready to welcome. And instead of admitting they weren't strong enough to walk that path with you, they act as if you weren't worth it. They convinced themselves you were replaceable, that someone easier or more familiar would make them feel better. But now that replacement feels empty. The laughter doesn't taste the same. The connection doesn't feel sacred. The depth is not there, because deep down they know what they lost. And that, my word, cannot be replaced. Your energy, your wisdom, your love, your truth. Now they compare everything and everyone to you. They replay the moments they ignored you, when they acted as if you were too intense, too emotional, too much. But the truth is, they were too small to handle the kind of love you were offering. You were not too much. They were simply not enough to handle you. And instead of growing, they fled. Now guilt mixes with regret, and regret turns into obsession. That is why they check on what you're doing. That is why they mention your name in rooms where they never wanted to speak of you. That is why they sweat every time you win. Because your life now exposes how small they thought when they let you go. You were the higher road and they chose the low ground. That kind of truth does not fade. It follows them forever. Number 4, you are a soul they cannot erase from their psyche. You are not just someone they knew. You have become a permanent imprint on their soul. They thought they could block you, delete your number, unfollow you, erase your photos, or pretend you never existed. But energy doesn't work that way. Connection doesn't work that way. When you are chosen, you are not a temporary experience. You are a spiritual event. And whether they want to admit it or not, you left a mark on their mind, their heart, and their soul that no distraction or rebound relationship can erase. They thought you were just a chapter they could close, but with time, they realized you weren't just a part of the story. You were the whole book. Every other connection feels bland in comparison. Every laugh seems forced. Every new person feels like a shallow attempt to replace something they know was sacred. You didn't just teach them about love. You taught them about depth. You didn't just listen. You heard them. You didn't just exist. You reflected their potential. And now that you are no longer in their life, they are haunted by the void your presence once filled. What makes it worse for them is how much they pretended you didn't matter. They pretended. Acted as if it didn't affect them, as if losing you was a victory. But behind the scenes, you never left. You appear in their dreams, in unexpected conversations, in music, in moments of silence when their guard is down. You became anchored in their subconscious in a way they hadn't anticipated, and now they are trapped in a loop they can't escape. Every time they see your progress, hear your name, or come across someone who reminds them of you, they feel that pull, that spiritual memory, that energetic reminder that they mishandled someone divine. Why do they sweat when you succeed? It's not just jealousy, it's the realization that you are thriving without them while they are still spiritually stuck in the memory of what they lost. You haven't faded away. You have multiplied. You have evolved, and now no matter how far they run, they cannot forget you, because you weren't just a person. You were the lesson, the mirror, the blessing they didn't know how to keep, and the story they will never be able to fully close. Number 5, you made God too real in their presence. You didn't enter their life, trying to prove anything, but by simply being you, everything they claimed to believe was suddenly put to the test. You didn't preach, you didn't argue, you simply existed, and your existence carried a presence that could not be denied. You were the living proof that God is real, that miracles happen, that divine protection is not just a fantasy, but a lifestyle. And for people who were used to treating faith like an accessory, that was a problem. They said, believe in God until you arrived and showed them what it really looks like. They talked about grace, but you embodied it. They quoted scriptures, but you moved with revelations. They said, favor isn't fair, but when favor manifested in your life, they became bitter instead of inspired. Because the truth is, they never expected to see someone walking in alignment while still being accessible, humble, and real. You were the proof that light and authenticity can coexist in the same vessel, and that shook their entire image of power. You didn't need a pulpit or a platform. Your life became the sermon. You survived things that should have destroyed you. You spoke truth in rooms where lies were currency. You carried a wisdom beyond your years, and instead of collapsing under the pressure, you transformed pain into purpose. They saw blessings follow you like shadows. They saw how things worked out for you in ways logic couldn't explain. And that is where the resentment started to set in. Not because you were lucky, but because you were aligned. People who don't secretly believe in what they claim to follow will always be uncomfortable in the presence of someone whose life proves it. Your walk forced them to see the difference between performance and presence, between religion and relationship, between quoting God and knowing God. And that confrontation is not easy to digest. So now, they avoid you, speak badly of you, or even try to discredit you. Because deep down, they know the truth. You didn't expose them with words, you exposed them with light. You made God too visible, too personal, too close for comfort, and unless they are ready to change, their only option is to reject the very thing they claimed to be seeking. Number 6. They had nothing. Now, they are afraid you will rise publicly. They were comfortable when you were struggling. When you had nothing, they felt powerful beside you. They would throw disguised jabs, underestimate your potential, and treat you as a non-threat. Your low season made them feel secure in their fake success and inflated confidence. As long as you stayed beneath them, they could convince themselves they were ahead of you. They could laugh, mock, and secretly enjoy your lack because it made their mediocrity look like greatness. But now, the narrative is changing, and they feel it. The same people who laughed behind your back are now watching you from fake accounts, hoping your rise is just a phase. But it's not. You are building something they can neither copy, nor control, nor explain. And that is what terrifies them. It's not just that you are rising, it's the way you are doing it. You aren't taking a seat, you are creating your own table. You don't brag. You simply become, quietly, powerfully. And that exposes everything they pretended to be. What makes it worse for them is that you are rising without bitterness. You aren't dragging anyone. You aren't seeking revenge. You are simply radiating a peace that cannot be imitated, and that peace screams louder than any clapback. Now, they realize that the one they mocked was the one with real substance, real favor, real purpose, and a deeper truth. They are afraid that your elevation will shed light on how fake their own platform is. They talked about you as if you were insignificant. Now, your name is popping up in places they didn't expect, on the lips of people they tried to impress. Your growth has created a ripple effect, and they are scrambling to hide their past behavior before others notice. They never expected the person they sidelined to become someone they cannot avoid. It's not your success that scares them. It's the exposure that comes with it. The world is starting to see your value, your anointing, your strength, and as your influence grows, the truth about how they treated you will follow. They don't fear your shine. They fear the evidence. They fear the story being told in your silence. And above all, they fear being seen for who they really were when you had nothing. Number 7. You were the only one in the room not playing a role. You were the only one in the room who didn't need to prove anything. You weren't trying to impress, outdo, or talk louder than anyone else. You simply showed up as yourself. And that presence alone caused tension, because in a world full of people playing roles, pretending to be more healed, more confident, more powerful than they really are, you stood out by simply being real. No mask, no script, no forced laughter. You didn't need to perform, and that exposed how many others were. People feel energy before words. They knew your confidence wasn't based on applause. It wasn't shaped by social media filters or loud declarations. It came from something deeper. You didn't shrink, but you didn't inflate yourself either. That calm, grounded energy disturbed every insecure person in the room. And because they couldn't understand what made you so anchored without external validation, they started to obsess over you. Not out of admiration, but out of confusion. You didn't seek approval. Yet people were drawn to you. You didn't name drop. Yet your name carried weight. You weren't aggressive. Yet your presence demanded respect. That is the kind of power that cannot be imitated. And it frustrated them. Because no matter how much noise they made, it never drowned out your silent truth. That kind of authenticity is a mirror. When fake people are near it, they either reflect or react. Most reacted. You didn't need to dominate the conversation because your silence spoke of clarity. You didn't seek attention because your aura attracted it, and the more natural you were, the more they questioned themselves. How could someone with fewer needs be so complete? How could someone so still shake a room? That is what bothered them the most. You didn't ask for the spotlight, but the spotlight always found you. And now, long after you've left those spaces, they are still thinking about it, still comparing, still wondering how you carried so much power without a performance. You weren't just different, you were the standard. You showed them what real looks like. And because they were too busy performing, they missed the opportunity to truly connect with something and someone genuine. That is a regret they carry quietly even now. Number 8. Your pain built an aura that makes you spiritually untouchable. Your radiance doesn't come from praise or comfort. It comes from having survived what was meant to destroy you. They see your strength now, and some even resent it. But what they don't understand is that it was built in silence, in darkness, in seasons where you had no one but God and your own determination. They look at your peace, your smile, your unshakable energy. But what truly unsettles them is knowing that everything you've become is the result of a pain they either contributed to or applauded. You didn't just survive betrayal. You transformed because of it. You didn't just endure rejection. You gained clarity from it. Every lie told about your name, every door slammed in your face, every tear you shed when no one was watching, all of it contributed to creating an aura they cannot penetrate. And now you move differently. You walk with wisdom in your eyes and armor on your soul. It's not an attitude, it's an elevation. What makes them nervous now is how untouchable you've become. They used to be able to trigger you, shake you, drag you into their chaos. But now nothing they do provokes a reaction. You've outgrown their games, their insults, their need for control. You've become spiritually fireproof, and that frustrates people who only know how to function through manipulation and access. They thought breaking you would make you bitter or broken, but instead it activated something ancient in you, something divine. Now when you enter a room, there is a presence around you that speaks louder than any word. It's not just confidence, It's protection. It's an anointing. That sacred energy built through suffering and survival. And here is the truth. They cannot reach you not because you are hiding, but because you are covered. What they tried to use to destroy you only elevated your spiritual rank. You are not above them because you think you're better. You are above them because you no longer vibrate on the same frequency. You went through hell, but you came out sacred. You carry the proof of endurance, and now every time they look at you, they are forced to face the fact that their worst failed to ruin you. It refined you. That is what makes them tremble. Number 9, you became the proof that love was possible, but they weren't ready. You didn't arrive trying to fix anyone. You simply loved them with a depth rarely found in this world. You didn't have to try to be special. Your presence, your intentions, your loyalty, and your heart already were. You didn't just say the right things. You meant them. You didn't love out of desperation. You loved from abundance. And that scared them because they weren't used to the real thing. They were used to people who needed them, not people who chose them from a place of integrity. You weren't just love. You were the proof that love still existed in a world full of fear, games, and shallow connection. And instead of rising to meet that kind of purity, they recoiled. They mocked it, tested it, tried to manipulate it. They chose ego over growth, attention over intimacy, and comfort over vulnerability. And even though they knew you were rare, they convinced themselves you would always be there. They thought they had time. They thought you would keep waiting while they played with your heart, as if it were disposable. But now you are gone, and the silence is louder than they anticipated. They don't talk about it, but they think about it constantly. Every time they see a post about love, every time someone mentions your name, every time they try to connect with someone new, it hits them. You weren't just someone they dated. You were a mirror, a blessing, a glimpse of something they didn't think they deserved. Now they replay the moments they ignored your honesty, the times you offered grace and they gave you attitude, the times you asked for depth and they gave you avoidance. And it hurts not because you are punishing them, but because the truth has finally caught up with their denial. You were the prophecy they didn't believe until it came to pass, and now they live with the pain of what if, knowing they will never find another you. That kind of love doesn't come twice. It doesn't chase. It doesn't beg to be seen. It offers itself fully, and if it is rejected, it takes its light elsewhere. And that is exactly what happened. You didn't lose them. They lost something irreplaceable. And now they are left trying to recreate a connection that wasn't meant to be imitated, but honored. Number 10, you are the one their spirit recognized even if their mind rejected you. There are connections that need no logic, no explanation, no time to make sense, because the soul already knows. That's what happened with you. From the instant your paths crossed, something in their spirit recognized you. Before their ego got in the way, before their fears got loud, before their defenses took over, they felt you, not just as a person, but as a divine presence, a mirror, a lesson, a mission. But their mind couldn't handle what their spirit was trying to receive. They weren't ready for someone who saw through them, someone who loved them beyond their masks, someone who wasn't impressed by the image but drawn to the essence. That kind of raw recognition is terrifying when you are not healed. So instead of embracing it, they fled. They tried to destroy it. They may have cut ties with you, pushed you away, or convinced themselves you weren't for them. But deep down, they knew it was different. That tension in their chest when they think of you, it's not nostalgia, it's spiritual accountability. They know they messed up something sacred. You weren't just a relationship, a friend, or a moment. You were a chance to evolve. A divine opportunity to grow, to break generational patterns, to experience love in its purest form, and they rejected it. Now, no matter how far they go or how much time passes, that spiritual tie persists. They dream of you. They feel your energy in quiet moments. They try to replace the connection, but it never works the same way because it's not just about missing you. It's the weight of having failed something heaven sent. That echo remains with them, not to torment them, but to remind them of what was possible had they chosen truth over fear. You weren't perfect, but you were aligned. You didn't chase them. You met them spirit to spirit, heart to heart. And even if they can forget your words or your face at times, what they will never escape is that pull, that feeling they had when they were near you. That clarity, that peace, that mirror, that knowing that you were no ordinary person. You were the divine assignment they failed. And now they live with the pain of something their spirit embraced, but their mind was too broken to accept. Number 11. You unlocked their deepest insecurities without saying a word. You didn't have to lift a finger to make them feel exposed. You didn't argue, flex, or try to outdo anyone. You simply were, and that was enough. Enough to shake them. Enough to make them feel small. Enough to activate everything they were trying to hide from the world. Because when you walked in, you didn't just bring a presence, you brought a reflection. You arrived with healing, self-awareness, and a silent strength. And that instantly revealed their lack of all those things. They were used to being the smartest, the strongest, the most admired in the room. But then you showed up, authentic, grounded, and completely uninterested in proving anything. And that's what made you dangerous, because your energy didn't need to be validated. It already was. You didn't need to be seen to feel worthy. You didn't need to convince anyone to feel important. And that kind of self-assurance terrified people who were still building their identity on attention, approval, and ego. You didn't trigger them because you were loud. You triggered them because you were clear. Clear about who you are, clear about your worth, clear about your boundaries. And that clarity made their confusion uncomfortable. You reflected a version of themselves they pretended to want to become, but weren't disciplined enough to embody. So instead of feeling inspired, they felt threatened. You didn't compete, but they treated you like a rival. You didn't point fingers, but they reacted as if you had. Because deep down, they knew your existence revealed everything they were still pretending to be. And that realization hits hard. It's one thing to be surrounded by people playing the same game. It's another to stand next to someone who has completely stopped playing. Your wholeness, your peace, your self-awareness, it all told the truth they were trying to avoid. So they became defensive, passive-aggressive, dismissive. Not because you hurt them, but because you reminded them of the work they still hadn't done. And the more you rose, the louder their insecurities became. That is why they couldn't stay near you for long. It was never because you were too much. It was because they weren't enough next to someone who wasn't pretending. You were never their enemy. You were their mirror, and mirrors don't lie. Number 12. You survived everything that was meant to destroy you, and they are confused. They wrote you off the moment life started to break you. When betrayal hit, they smiled. When people turned against you, they joined the crowd. When you were ignored, mocked, and left to fend for yourself, they watched silently. Some even cheered behind closed doors. They were certain you wouldn't get back up, certain you would sink. They expected your pain to consume you alive. But you didn't collapse. You transformed, and now they are confused, completely destabilized, because in their world pain equals destruction. But in your world, pain became the raw material for elevation. They don't understand how you became stronger without vengeance, how you found clarity in the chaos, how you kept your heart intact while everything around you tried to make you bitter. They only know power through domination, manipulation, or control. But you found your power in surrender, by handing it over to God, by doing the inner work, by rising without making a sound. That is why they can't comprehend your radiance. It doesn't come from the usual sources. You didn't use anyone. You didn't lie to attain peace. You didn't manipulate your healing. You earned it through spiritual warfare. You let people go and in some ways became more whole. You walked away from places that drained you and in some ways found favor. You lost everything at one point and in some ways came back with more. That kind of rebound makes no sense to people who rely on external power. They don't understand what it's like to fight battles in the mind and win. They don't understand how being broken leads to becoming unshakable. You've become a walking contradiction to their expectations. The way you laugh now, the way you speak with authority, the way you move without asking for permission, it doesn't match the version of you they remember, the one they thought was too weak, too soft, too fragile to make it. And that is why they watch you from afar, still trying to figure it out. Number 13. You are the unfinished sentence of their story, and it's eating them alive. They thought you were finished, but all that time you were being refined. What was meant to destroy you actually revealed who you truly were. Now your life is proof that survival isn't about control. It's about surrender to something greater, going through the fire and coming out covered in glory. And that breaks all the rules of their limited view of strength. They were so sure they had the last word. They thought they could walk out of your life mid-sentence and close the book as if it were just another story. They ghosted you without explanation, lied as if it were nothing, mocked you to feel powerful, and even celebrated your absence as a victory. They convinced themselves that leaving you behind would erase your presence. But what they didn't foresee is that the story would continue without them, and not just continue, but thrive. You became the plot twist they didn't see coming. Instead of collapsing, you rose. Instead of chasing them, you chose yourself. Instead of shrinking in the silence, you built something within it. You took every unanswered question, every betrayal, every unfinished conversation, and turned it into growth. Now you walk in clarity, in peace, in purpose. And the life they thought they could end for you, you are living better than ever. That is what shames them. Not that you moved on, but that you became more in the process. You became the unfinished sentence that keeps replaying in their mind. They try to act as if it doesn't affect them, but they are still watching you, still wondering, waiting for a fall that never comes. And every new success of yours, every time your name comes up positively, every post, every glow, it reopens the story they thought they had closed. You see, they never expected you to win without them. They sidelined you thinking they were the main character and you were just background noise. But now, it's obvious. You were the substance, you were the moment, you were the one carrying something real. And without you, the story has become dull, predictable, hollow. Because the truth is, they didn't just lose a person. They lost a divine connection, a catalyst, a one-of-a-kind chapter they now wish they could rewrite. But it's too late. You are not going back to finish the story they abandoned. You've become a whole new book, and now they live with the regret of a story they will never get closure on. Not because you are cruel, but because their actions wrote them out of the narrative. And the most haunting part is that you were the sentence that could have changed the entire plot. Number 14, you are no longer accessible, and that is the real reason they are spiraling. They never imagined a day would come when you would stop responding, when your energy would no longer be available on demand, when you would no longer bend over backwards to explain yourself, to prove your heart, to maintain the connection single-handedly. They thought you would always be there, always accessible, always ready to fix what they kept breaking. But now everything has changed and it's wrecking them. You aren't bitter. You are just done. Done being the emotional crutch. Done being the easy target. Done playing the role of the forgiver while they kept playing the villain. You have reached a level of healing that isn't loud, but is permanent. They didn't believe you would ever reach that place, and that is what hits them the hardest. The access they once abused is now denied. Not because you are punishing them, but because you have finally protected what is sacred. You don't post the same way anymore. You don't reach out. You don't react. You don't seek closure. You don't explain your absence, and that mysterious peace you walk in, it's suffocating them. Not knowing what you're doing, who you're with, or what you're planning. It's eating them alive. Because control is how they maintained their power, but now they can't read you or reach you, and it's driving them crazy. The crazy thing is they always had access. They just never honored it. They never realized your presence was a blessing, your vulnerability a gift, your love a sacred treasure. They thought you were replaceable because they mistook your kindness for weakness. Now that door is closed, not slammed, just sealed quietly, firmly, without announcement. And that silence is the loudest thing they have ever heard. They thought you would wait forever. They thought you would always answer, but now you are too busy becoming the person you were always destined to be. You detached not in anger but in power, and they finally see that it wasn't about what you wanted from them. It was about what they failed to value when it was right in front of them. You were never ordinary. You were an access point to the divine, to healing, to unconditional love. And they lost that, not by accident but by choice. That is what wrecks them. Not that you left, but that they can't come back. They thought they could play with you, trample over you, and return when it suited them. But you have evolved into someone they no longer have the password for. You didn't just walk away. You leveled up, and that ascent was neither loud nor dramatic. It was silent, sacred, and irreversible. Everything in your journey screams divine protection. Your growth didn't come from applause. It came from solitude. Your strength wasn't built in comfort, but in chaos. And that version of you they took for granted and tried to erase, that version is gone. In its place stands someone who is spiritually fortified, emotionally untouchable, and energetically unavailable for nonsense. Now they are left with the ghost of the access they once took for granted. They scroll past your name, hoping for a crack in a door that will no longer open. What they didn't understand is that your love was a once-in-a-lifetime encounter. And now that it's gone, they realize it wasn't just love, it was a legacy. So let them sweat. Let them overthink. Let them spiral, trying to decode the peace you have finally earned. Because when you were within their reach, they saw you as an option. But now that you are inaccessible, they are forced to face a brutal truth. They lost the rarest soul they ever knew. If this resonated with your spirit, don't just scroll by. Take a second to show some love. Go ahead and like this video. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or testimony and share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. Your voice could be the reminder they were waiting for. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another message tailored for your soul. This isn't just a channel, it's a sanctuary for the chosen, and your presence here makes it powerful. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Now move forward, bold, healed, and divinely uncompromising. And may God bless you.